and welcome. If you have followed me on social media for the past few weeks, you may have seen me post a couple things about some changes that our family is going through, specifically food changes and the GAPS diet. So that is what today's video is going to be about. First up, we'll talk about what is the GAPS diet. Next up, I will go over what we are doing to modify the GAPS diet. And finally, I will share with you the shocking and awful truth of why we are doing the GAPS diet. So GAPS stands for Gut and Psychology Syndrome. It was created by Dr. Natasha Campbell. She has created this to address the bad bacteria or the bad gut flora in the gut that affects the brain and how the brain functions, actually how the entire body functions. So when we have bad bacteria in our bodies, we have problems. So the GAPS diet is broken up into two main parts. You have the GAPS intro diet, which includes 6 stages of various restriction levels that allow your body to go through a seriously deep healing process. You almost remove every food item except for meat stock, some liquid from fermented foods, and very well cooked meats and vegetables that are not overly fibrous or starchy. You start there and then you slowly increase or add foods based on your body's sensitivities. So if you get to the point where you're adding avocado and you don't have any negative reactions, you carry on to the next addition. The second portion of the GAPS diet is called full GAPS. So after you've worked through the 6 stages, you get to this point where you can eat almost every item in the full GAPS diet. So this is all of your meats, almost all of your vegetables. There are a few vegetables that you can't eat. Most fruits, as well as nuts, fats, various things that are great for your body to not only promote healing and nutrition, but that are still not super difficult for your body to digest. Of course, you're constantly adding really good probiotics during this entire time. Even after you transition from the stages, you're still making sure that you're adding the right things into your diet so that you can continue to heal your body. So the GAPS stages typically can last for a few weeks, the stages 1 through 6. So that process can last for a few weeks, or it can last as long as your body is needing to go through those stages. So that portion is the smaller portion of the two parts of GAPS. When you get to the full GAPS, that part of the diet you are going to stay on for roughly 1.5 to 2 years. You can go ahead and try to add various foods at that 1.5 mark and start seeing how your body reacts to potatoes or fermented grains. And then you just go from there. If your body does not react well, then you go back and you stay on the full GAPS for the additional time period. As far as how we are modifying the GAPS diet, so there are a few modifications that we have decided to do. First up, the GAPS diet, the intro stages do not include coffee. Now, I am a coffee drinker, and that is one thing that I have decided not to give up at this time. We started with stage 3 because I'm doing it with everyone in my house, and I did not want to deal with the intense detox symptoms at this time, especially right before the holidays. So we started with stage 3, and I kept my coffee, and we have fairly quickly worked through stages 3 through 6 and are now on the full GAPS. At this point, I have decided we will carry out full GAPS until January, and we will most likely, or I will most likely, go back and start at stage 1 and slowly work my way through that. Again, I said we had holidays, we also have birthdays, and there are just so many reasons why I'm not up for starting with stage 1 from the get-go. It also took me probably 7 or so months from when I first learned about the GAPS diet to actually executing the GAPS diet. So I figured I'd take it easy for my entire family, and then we would work our way up to starting at the beginning. I still haven't decided if I'll have everyone start at the beginning at stage 1 with me, or if we will just allow them to stay on the full GAPS while I go back and do the stages. The children's modifications include 2 major parts. The first one is grains. They are consuming a small variety of grains that I have noticed do not affect them. This would include rice, quinoa, oats. That's pretty much it at this point. Periodically they will have pasta, but that's not too often. The other thing, the main modification for the kiddos, is called the birthday party rule. So we developed this several years ago. Our family does sugar and grain detoxes multiple times a year for several weeks. And we developed the birthday party rule so that the kids, when they are in a group setting, would not feel weird or outcast or left out. If everyone in the group is eating a treat, we wanted them to be able to participate and not have to bring in something else. So the kids do have what we call birthday party rule now that we're in the full GAPS. I did not allow them to use birthday party rule while we were doing the stages. And that's just because I wanted to give their little bodies a good 2-3 weeks of almost no sugar, because I do think that they work best when they don't have sugar. So as far as the kids go, one of them does have sugar sensitivities, and the other one doesn't seem to have any problems whatsoever with food-related problems. I have noticed every time we do a sugar and grain detox throughout the years that grains and sugars very much affect me. So I've played around with it a few times to see what specifically affects me, and it just seems like white sugar, maple syrup, the sugar alternatives, and almost all grains affect me. So I'm fine with cutting those out for myself, and that's why I'm not having the kids go as extreme as well, because I don't think that grains are a problem for them. I also am not interested in them losing weight at this, well, ever, because they are growing and they are trying to develop their bodies, so we are supplementing as necessary. Okay, so for the good stuff, or really the bad stuff, why I am doing the GAPS diet. In September of 2020, I got electrocuted, and it was from a small household appliance, and we are debating getting rid of it fully. We have been playing with not using a microwave for a good while now, and just use it in rare cases. So yes, it was the microwave. And I had about a week-long battle with gastrointestinal issues. It got to the point where I did go to the emergency room for IV fluids, as well as anti-nausea medicine, because I was not able to deal with it on my own. And a week of dealing with gastrointestinal issues is awful. So I thought that was the end of it. I recovered. So I thought, and about 2 weeks later, my husband deployed for the first time. And shortly after that, my stress level increased, rightly so, because I was running our farm by myself. So I noticed a red patch right here around my chin, well, around my mouth really. And I thought it was eczema, which I had been dealing with for the past year or so anyway. So I thought it was eczema. I was treating it like eczema, which would make it go away and then make it come back very intensified. So a treatment for eczema is a topical steroid treatment, like cortisone cream and Vaseline, or something to kind of keep in moisture. And both of these things would take it away for a short period of time and then cause it to come back very bad, like very intensely red, flaky, itchy. And so I started doing some more research and realized that what I have is perioral dermatitis. I don't know if this is caused from the electrocution specifically, but I really think it's related because I never had issues with it until after the electrocution. So I believe it is from that. So I started doing research on how to treat the perioral dermatitis. And during that time, I found two treatment courses. So the first one is conventional medicine. Go to the doctor, get a prescription for a low-dose antibiotic, and take that for a really long time. And the prognosis of that is it may cure it or take it away immediately, but it's not going to cure the perioral dermatitis. So I thought that doesn't seem like a route that I was interested in. We don't do antibiotics that often anyway. And so I wasn't terribly keen on doing a long-term dose of antibiotics. So I continued doing research and came across several blogs that talk about doing the GAPS diet to heal their perioral dermatitis. And so I started doing research on GAPS diet and just didn't think it was something that I could do. I talked myself out of it for several months. Then during the course of time, so this is all happening at the same time, during the course of my husband being away, realizing that I have the face issues, and then I realized that I was in the midst of a severe, case or bout of anxiety. So this one, it was debilitating to the point where I couldn't leave my house a lot of times, or if I did, I would have panic attacks while I was driving or out. And I tried to explain it to the kids, because we would stay home a lot while my husband was gone, and just them not fully understanding, me not fully understanding all that was going on, and just trying to navigate that as best as I could at home. A friend recommended taking a magnesium supplement, which I did add, and that seemed to help a bit. Obviously, I started exercising, doing all the home remedies that you can do, exercising, making sure that I was getting the right amount of sleep, reducing stress, and eating healthy, which when you're in the midst of an anxiety attack, it's hard to do all of those things because just getting dressed in the morning is a problem, let alone trying to eat. So fast forward a couple months, we were gearing up. My husband came home from his trip. The stressors kind of, subsided a bit. And we did one of our yearly sugar detoxes. And I noticed that all of my anxiety, as well as my face flare, cleared up. So I thought, well, that's interesting. Keep going. So we went back with normal life, as we always do after a sugar detox. And then a couple months later, the anxiety just continued to develop and get worse, even after my husband was home. And it wasn't anybody's fault. It was just the way that my body was reacting to various situations. So I would have some trigger, and then I couldn't get off of that train of thought. So like my camera is on a tripod right now. One time I had an anxiety about having a camera on the tripod and somebody knocking over the tripod. And all I could see was the tripod like standing up and falling over, standing up and falling over. And that's not a healthy way to live. And I know this. I prayed through it. I did all my healthy alternatives, but I also realized this was not a way to live life. So I continued doing research. We even went off grains and sugars again in the summer because I thought, it helped earlier this year. I'm going to try it again. Well, sure enough, as soon as I eliminated grains and sugars, within just a couple days, the anxiety went away, as well as the perioral dermatitis. So I finally realized there's something here. So I decided I'm going to commit to doing the GAPS diet. So I made a menu plan. I got this book, so I'm going to show you. We have the Heal Your Gut cookbook. So I got this one. I read through it, went through all the stages, and I made a menu plan. And I thought, you know what, if I just make a menu plan, I can kind of wrap my brain around this. So I did, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited a little longer, and finally I started. And it was hard to make that transition as, going off of what the culture is doing, going against the culture, swimming upstream. It was challenging to get started, but I have another friend who's doing the GAPS diet, and I was able to ask questions and just see her progress. It's just mind-boggling how amazing the progress is. And so I started, and within just a couple days, I was not only having minimal, redness around my face, almost no flaking, and the anxiety has been gone. So we've been doing GAPS for several weeks now, and I am feeling so great. It is just amazing how much better I'm feeling. I have not had a panic attack since just a couple days before we started the diet, and I have not been having the ups and downs of the anxiety. So I would urge you to look into the GAPS diet if you are dealing with various things. The GAPS works with, and here's another book by the creator of the GAPS diet, but this one, it tells you some of the things that it works on. So autism, dyspraxia, dyslexia, ADD and ADHD, depression, schizophrenia, and the list is so long on all the various ailments that are that come from a unhealthy gut. So if you're dealing with any of those things, I would urge you to get this book, to look through it, to do some research on the GAPS diet and see if it's something that would be right for your family. I do not think it's right for everybody. I'm just going to put that out there. I think there are some people that really should not start with this, or should not be doing it without a medical supervision, and you might need some extra help. If you have any questions, I would love to chat with you about GAPS. And if you have any tips, like if you've already gone through GAPS, send them all my way, because we are just really at the beginning of this journey. And I'm excited to see what we look like in about 2 years. Be sure to check back in the next couple weeks as I give updates, as well as recipes, as well as how the holidays go, because of our food tweaks that we are doing. Thank you so much for watching this video and for letting me share my heart on the problems that I've been dealing with. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.